Hi friends, welcome back. Today we are making City of Stars, released by Louis Vuitton in 2022. The perfumer behind this fragrance is Jacques Cavalier Belletrude. I thought he was just Jacques Cavalier. I'm not sure when that hyphenation happened, but I guess he's got three names, so I'll refer to him by the full name here in the future. I've not smelled this formula. I do have a sample headed my way. Thank you, Fragrance Decant Boutique. No, this is not sponsored, but I use them a lot when I'm trying to, smell fragrances. So I have it on the way, so expect a review, a comparison sometime in the future. But we're going to whip this up. This formula comes to us from Base Notes. Again, we are highlighting the work, the contribution of the member DB.S. So whoever you are, DBS, thank you for sharing. And thank you for the thoughtful notes that you write when you provide these formulas. If we look at the structure of this formula, it's heavy in salicylates, which are spread between the balsamic note here, and the green note and the floral note, because we've got three salicylates: benzyl salicylate, cis-3 hexanyl salicylate, and amyl salicylate. This fragrance is also citrus heavy. You would almost think this is an eau de Cologne, but I guess it's not. It's very floral. I guess it's very beachy. Again, I haven't smelled this, so I'm very interested in whipping this up. Now, what we're going to start with today are the salicylates, and there's going to be a lot of smelling. I've got 11 strips set up here, ready to go. I also have all of my solvents already in this beaker. Today, I'm going to be making a 40-gram batch, which will fill roughly a 50 milliliter bottle, and the end concentration is going to be 20%. Not sure if that's going to be too hot, if it's going to be a little too concentrated or not concentrated enough, but in general, somewhere between 15 and 20% works for a lot of formulas. So that's what we're going to do today. Now, because this is salicylate heavy, that's where I want to start. We're going to start with the salicylates first, in particular, the benzyl salicylate. Now this is fully 14% of the concentrate. I'm using this neat. And this is a wonderful material. It's definitely a salicylate. All the salicylates are, they share the same profile. But they all have a slightly different color or a slightly different flavor. The benzyl salicylate is a little balsamic, a little floral, rich, whereas the cis-3 hexanyl salicylate is, well, it's salicylate, but it's almost like you mixed up a salicylate with cis-3 hexanyl. Can you believe it? The amyl salicylate, which we're going to do next, is a bit more green, slightly more green, a little bit more floral. It's actually very close to my nose, just smelling it. It's very similar to benzyl salicylate. However, it is not a replacement. If you swap this out in certain formulas, you're going to get a very different effect. So be wary. Okay. Now, per usual, I have a mix of neat materials diluted to 10%, and my hedione is at 50%. Next up, cis-3 hexanyl salicylate. Okay, so let's do a pop quiz. If I am making a fragrance and every material that I use is neat, in other words, it's at 100% concentrate. When I blend it all up, what is the end concentrate of my juice? If you guessed that it's at 100%, correct. If I were to use my materials and every single one of them was at a 10% dilution, what would the end concentrate be for my juice? If you said 10%, you'd be correct. So what do I do if I want a finished formula, a finished fragrance at, say, 20%, a 20% concentrate? Then I can use a mix of materials where some are at 10% and some of them are neat. Some of them are even 50%. In short, you just got to do some math. So let's set this salicylate strip. Say that 10 times fast. We'll set that aside. And next up, let's move to the citruses. I have a few neat materials. We're going to start, however, with citral. Just going to go in alphabetical order for what I have here in Formulaire. If you own a Mac, an Apple product, and you're looking for a solid formula management system and materials management system, can't argue with Formulaire. It's pretty solid. Shout out to Sam Macer. Good job for learning to code just to create this thing. 10 points for you, Sam. Okay, citral. Let's do this. Citral is at a 10% dilution. To me, it's warm, it's woody, it's citrusy, but it doesn't have the zing of citrus. It doesn't, it's not the limonene side of citrus. It's kind of the warm, fruity, fuzzy, almost Pez-like side of citrus. Okay, next up, lemon. And the lemon I'm using will be neat. There's a lot of lemon in here. That smells so good. Smells so good. Won't need much because, again, we're just rolling it neat here. I've noticed when I do my drops with neat materials, the weight is all over the board, weight per drop. When I'm using a 10% in ethanol diluted material, most often it's for every drop, it's like 0.012 grams, 0.013 grams, something like that. Next up, lime oil. This is pressed lime, not distilled lime. And this has got a nice zingy green element to it that is just wonderful. I also thoroughly enjoy the color here. But when I'm dropping neat materials, sometimes they're a little lighter, sometimes they're much heavier. So when I'm using neat materials, I do have to slow down a little bit in my rate of dropping because occasionally I'll overdo it. Okay, next up we have yellow mandarin. I have a little bit left from Perfumer's Apprentice. There's almost a full gram in this batch of neat yellow mandarin. Now, yellow mandarin, will I have enough? Maybe. Yellow mandarin is a bit brighter than orange. Not orange mandarin, just orange, sweet orange. It's a bit brighter. It's a bit more zingy. And if you were to compare this with green mandarin and red mandarin, yellow mandarin is right in the middle as far as the brightness, the dark brightness or darkness, the sweetness versus the zingy sourness. You know, red mandarin is a bit more rich and sweet. Green mandarin, a bit more aldehydic to my nose, a bit more green and bright. Yellow mandarin's beautiful. It's right in between. Okay. Oh, I'm going to bust out the big boy. Got a kilo of yellow mandarin here. Smells good. Smells very nice. Let's just add, I'll throw this back in the fridge. Actually, what I need to do is make a smaller, put this in a smaller bottle and then use that to make my dilutions, because I don't like taking this out of the fridge for small amounts. Think of the consequences of pulling this out of the fridge and then opening it immediately. What happens? Well, this is aluminum. It's cold. What happens to your cold glass of Coke or whiskey or orange juice? What happens to it when you put it out on a hot day? Condensation. And I don't want to get water in here. So whenever I pull it out, I've got to wait, let it come to room temperature. Yeah, I've gotten in trouble with opening up some bottles too quickly, letting humid air get inside, and then the condensation occurs on the inside and I get water in some of my materials. It's happened a couple times. I won't let it happen again. Okay, more perfumery, ready to go. Sweet orange. Ooh, yeah. Sweet orange from the good old USA. We're using this neat. All right. If you're wondering what sweet orange smells like, just go to the store, smell a Valencia orange. It's pretty much what you get. Nice and easy. Last but not least. Oh, I went out of order. Methyl pamplemousse. Methyl pamplemousse is a wonderful grapefruit note. It's citrusy, but it has this warm smoothness behind a metallic grapefruit. It's absolutely wonderful. It really helps. I think it helps aid in the projection or the throw of the initial citrus note in a fragrance. Okay. Need to do better of mixing this whenever we get to the end. Okay. When I dip, you dip, we dip. Okay. Okay, next up, let's do some of our floral materials, the more jasmine-like oriented, jasmine-like materials. Let's start with our benzyl acetate. Not much benzyl acetate. Gotta wonder, was benzyl acetate a line item in the formula? Or is benzyl acetate a part of, say, jasmine that was added to the real formula? I will never know because I did not create this fragrance. Next up, let's do our hexyl cinnamaldehyde. Hexyl cinnamaldehyde. This is jasmine. It's got kind of a green side to it, but it's a wonderful, light, transparent, uplifting jasmine note. It's jasmine without that hearty benzyl acetate and without the indole. Ooh. I think that's enough. All right, perfect. Last but certainly not least, Hedione. And I'm using Hedione HC. I do believe in the formula on base notes, it might just say Hedione, not Hedione HC. Oh no, it says Hedione HC. Never mind. Never mind. So we are staying true to the formula here. Now, 12% of the juice of the concentrate is Hedione HC. And when putting together a formula, I do prefer, if I can, I prefer to get this into the juice sooner rather than later. Because if I add it late in the game, say at the very end, all I smell when I smell the scent strip is Hedione. It really covers up the materials underneath it. And for about a half an hour or an hour, all I smell is Hedione. Now I did a terrible thing. I didn't mix this up and I'm just wasting pipettes. I need to focus more. But if I get it into the concentrate earlier, then I find it starts blending earlier. It starts working its way in between the molecules, helps to support and lift the molecules rather than just dominate the molecules. Okay, let's dip. All right, white floral is done. Next up, we have our rosy red-like florals. And there's a couple other, interesting notes in here. But let's start. Oh, I've got Aurantiol. Let's start with Aurantiol. This is not kind of a red floral. This is a shifts base between, what is it? Methyl and thranolate. And I can never remember. Hydroxycitronellal. Hydroxycitronellal and methyl and thranolate. So we'll start here. Aurantiol is pretty long lasting. It is a nice floral note. It is nice. It's got a sweet fruitiness to it as well. It's just very pleasant. And I'd say it kind of has a powdery edge to it. Okay, next up, citronellol. Don't confuse this with citronellal. Citronellol, definitely rosy. Citronellal, not used as much in fine fragrances, more in functional fragrances, but citronellal occasionally is used, and boy does it pop. It's much more green, aldehydic, and it throws. Oh yeah. Speaking of throwing, this I can smell. Maybe it's because my nose is right over the bottle, but citronellol does such a good job of adding a quick and easy rose note. It adds some body and fullness and a floral quality to your fragrance, but it's just quick and easy. Okay, citronellyl acetate. Not much in here, just a splash. One thing I'm going to start doing. So up until now, my focus in learning perfumery, aside from blending all of these fragrances that we do, has been on individual materials, just evaluating individual materials, getting to know the individual smells. But we're about to change gears. Next up, geranyl acetate. Next, and very soon, I'll start creating accords. Not fantasy accords, but rose accords, jasmine accords, just the, the tried and true. And I'm looking forward to sharing that experience with you because there's many ways of creating a rose accord. And for example, with, a certain subset of materials, you can make 6 different flowers using the same materials, just depending on what ratio you're using those materials. So I'm excited to share that adventure. But one thing I read is that, say you take rose and you need your phenylethyl alcohol, your citronellol, your geraniol, maybe some nerol, and you've got your core rose. If you smell it, you go, oh yeah, that's a rose. Let's do our phenylethyl alcohol. But it's all the other stuff that adds depth and complexity and beauty to where when you smell it, you don't just go, oh yeah, that's a rose, but you sniff and you go, oh, that's a rose. And what's interesting about all of these blends is that it's the little amount of citronellol acetate. It's the little amount of geraniol. It's the little amount of Vuitton that we're going to add that take a fragrance from, that smells good, to, oh my gosh, that smells amazing. So many subtle nuances that are contributed by these trace amounts of these, of these materials. Next up, geraniol. I skipped over the geraniol, went straight to the geranyl acetate. And there's only 1 drop of geraniol. This is actually very similar to citronellol. Very similar. Maybe a bit more green. And at the same time, it's just a bit deeper. It has like a lower pitch to my nose than citronellol. Okay, we continue. Next up, phenylhexanol, otherwise known as phenoxanol. This is an interesting material because it's similar. It's similar to citronellol, geraniol. I mean, it has that same kind of floral vibe. It's a little less zingy. It's a little more in the lily of the valley direction. But maybe it just adds a little bit of personality, a little subtle personality to our floral accord here. Now, we're going to add a few more materials to this floral accord. And I'll be honest, I don't even know if these belong. Actually, I'll just say they probably don't belong. But they're such little amounts that that we're going to do it. The first up is isoborneol. It's balsamic, it's herbal, it's a little camphoraceous. It's got a dirty quality to it, to my nose, and there's not much in here. One reason I'm looking forward to starting this adventure building accords, it's because as humans, we are so good at pattern recognition. And when I look at a formula right now, I only see the patterns that I have created in my own head from the repetitions of creating formulas and from the occasional blending of materials that I've done. When you start building accords, you can start to recognize the relationships that phenylethyl alcohol plays with citronellol, with geraniol. You can tell how eucalyptus or eucalyptol might fit in with certain other accords that you're making. And so rather than looking at a formula and seeing individual materials and going, oh, that's green, that's aromatic, that's a citrus, you start to say, oh, that's a rose accord. Oh, that's a jasmine accord. So I'm looking forward to developing that pattern set and developing that pattern recognition in my own mind. Next up, we have eucalyptus. This eucalyptus contains a little bit of menthol. Otherwise, it contains a fair bit of 1,8-cineol, otherwise known as eucalyptol. It's fresh. It's got a camphoraceous type vibe. It's also dirty. Wouldn't be surprised if there's some borneol in this. And last up, let's do our linalool oxide. I still don't know where linalool oxide fits. I never see it in very large amounts. It's always in trace amounts. So I don't know if this occurs naturally, if it's a specific line item in the formula. I don't know. And I did it again. I did the last ingredient and I did not mix. I would just pull it out of here where I have all my used pipettes, but there's perfume juice. There's just concentrate sitting at the bottom there. And I don't want to take a cross-contaminated pipette and dip it. Okay, so that was a long one. So let's dip. We'll let it rest. Now the next one, the next set is going to be pretty quick. I'm calling this linalool filler because we have two neat materials, linalool and linalool acetate, and there's a fair bit of it. Okay, next up, it's going to be a quick one. We have two materials, both of them are neat, linalool and linalool acetate. So let's start with our linalool. The wonderful linalool works as a great filler, a nice floral, fruity, a little metallic filler. Okay, don't need much here because again, it's neat. Wonderful. And then linalool acetate. About 6% of the concentrate is in linalool acetate. It's very similar to linalool, just a bit sweeter, a little bit darker, maybe less floral, a little more metallic, but like a darker metallic. Best way I can put it. Okay. Okay. Put my pipette away again. Oh well. Gonna have to deal with it. I think these pipettes, every time I use a pipette, it is 1.7 cents. I think that's my current cost of pipettes. So here's another almost 2 pennies down the road, down the drain. All right. Ooh, I'm starting to get some smells coming out of here, and I like where we're at. I like what I'm smelling. Now, if you're looking at this beaker here, you can see that we're almost to 50 milliliters. And that's about how much we're going to be making today. So, and I have plenty more materials left. Next up, we're moving to the sweet/fruity materials. All right. And there's not a lot here. Not a lot here. So let's see what happens. Let's start with the Vuitton, or fruity cyclopentanone. It's definitely fruity. It's fruity, but it's fruity almost in a jasmine direction. Like it's got that light florality to it. It's delicate. It's like a delicate fruit. Okay, next we have aldehyde C14, so-called peach aldehyde, or gamma undecalactone. Oh, gosh, I am choking today on not making a mess. Okay, gamma undecalactone. Wonderful. Creamy, lactonic, a touch peachy material. And then next, we will do aldehyde C18, coconut aldehyde so-called, or gamma nonylactone. Now, if you're new to perfumery, I'd suggest you get both of these. You might be okay with just one of them. They do smell similar. The coconut aldehyde, so-called, gamma nonylactone, is a bit less fruity, a little bit less peachy than gamma undecalactone. But both of them are very lactonic. They're used in similar amounts in fragrances. So if you had to pick one, you know, just pick. Next up, let's get our coumarin in here. Big fan of coumarin. Oh, you hear that? That means I need to make a new dilution. Luckily, there's not much in here, so I'm not going to run out. Okay. Next, delta decalactone. It's another lactone. It's fruity, sweet, creamy, just like the other lactones. I probably picked this up only because it is in fragrance formulas. I have so many lactones. I have so many of them, and don't yet have this skill to say, oh yeah, this needs more delta decalactone or gamma octalactone, a little less gamma hexalactone. I mean, I don't have that skill. So I probably bought it just so I could make formulas as true as possible. Next up, ethyl vanillin. By the way, if you're looking to pick up materials and you're thinking of aldehyde C16, strawberry aldehyde so-called, think twice. I think I've used that material only a couple times. Did I say we were doing ethyl vanillin? We're doing ethyl vanillin, the vanilla ice cream material. Okay. And last, vanillin. Good old vanillin. Okay. Looking forward to dipping this one. Occasionally I've found that small amounts of vanillin and ethyl vanillin with coumarin can really help a fragrance pop. Maybe it just adds a little bit of rich depthness, a rich depth that helps everything else on top of it, you know, stand on its own. I don't know, but I think it was when we were mixing up Lost Cherry that was my first experience of going, what? I'll have to double check that because I remember having an experience of being amazed at what happened with a little bit of vanillin, a little bit of coumarin. So let's dip. Okay, next we have 5 more groups we're going to do. Thanks for sticking with me. Aldehydes. There are 3. Let's start with our good old decanal, or aldehyde C10. This is at a 1% dilution. It's waxy, it's fatty. It's bright and raspy. Lasts a long time. Okay, wonderful. Next, cyclamen aldehyde. This is more of a fresh, green, almost lily of the valley material, rather than, say, a classic waxy aldehyde. Okay. Got one more. Anise aldehyde, or anisic aldehyde. This is more of a true aldehyde, but it's got a richness. It's got a deep, spicy, sweet richness to it. I'm thinking twice now about me putting aldehydes here, because near the end, I've got a powdery strip, and I'm thinking I probably should have added these to the powderies, but that's okay. We're gonna blend this. We're gonna just smell, it's okay to smell too often and try to smell what the difference is when we add materials. I don't think there's any harm in that. So let's do our aldehydes. Okay. Next, ozone. There are only 2. Cologne, the big boy, and then Cologne's little sister, Linalool. All right. Yeah, boy. Cologne is clear and fresh. Clear and fresh. When you go outside and maybe you're near the woods, near the forest, and you get a nice fresh breeze coming down the mountainside, and you breathe it in, and you wonder, how can I recreate that feeling in my nose? You can't use something that's minty, because mint has like a smell. It smells like mint, right? Or camphor. Camphor has a smell, but you want that effect in your nose, Cologne is about, I think, as close as you can get. Unless you guys know of another material, maybe cast Cologne, maybe floral ozone, maybe ultrazor, I don't know. But Cologne gets it pretty darn close. So let's do our Linalool. This is not as strong. Am I doing this at 100%? Yes, I am. Look at that. All right. We're using this neat. So I guess this is an important material. Linalool is not as strong as Cologne. It is equally as beautiful, however, but it's got more of a melon note, a touch of floralness. What's a better word, floralness or florality? I kind of like florality. I think I just made that up, but whatever. I wasted another 1.7 cents. Dang it. Here we go. Let's mix. Maybe I should just have a mixing pipette. I should just leave this in here. I'm going to leave this in here. This will be my mixing pipette. That's good thinking right there. All right. Dip. When I dip, you dip. We dip. Next, we're going to get into our powdery materials. There's some notes that DBS posts here that this is about some of the smells, is that there's a powderiness in this, that once the citrus dies down, you get into this nice floral, powdery business. Well, I've got, other than those aldehydes we put in, we've got heliotropin. Now there's not much heliotropin in here. Let me see, where are you, heliotropin? Here we go. Yeah, 0.34% of the concentrate. Okay, so yeah. But it is definitely powdery. Heliotropin's hard to nail down as far as the smell is concerned. It's hard to categorize. It's floral, it's sweet, it's fruity, but it's powdery. Yeah, it's an oddball. Okay, we're gonna do 2 more. With this powdery material, I'm going to add, don't judge, Verimoss or Evernil. When I first smell this, I don't get the mossy richness that's underneath. On top of that mossy richness is this raspy powderiness. So we're going to put it today in our powdery category. Again, for our purposes, no harm in the way that we blend these. I think so long as we just keep smelling and try to smell what's different in between scent strip dips. Let's keep trucking. Next up, now I know you're going to judge me for this one. Next up is Ylang Ylang, specifically Ylang Ylang 1. It's floral, but again, it has that same edge to it that is a little, again, raspy is what comes to mind. It's like a little fuzz. It's a little powder on the edge of that narcotic floral. So we're going to put it in. And this is very strong. You don't need much to make an impact. So we're going to see how does this contribute? How does it play with Evernil, with our Verimoss and Heliotropin? Does it play well? Is it friends with them? We're going to find out. Okay. Luckily, I have my stirring pipette here. All right. Let's dip. Okay. Next, let's do our base notes, just straight up base notes and woods. We're going to start with our alpha terpineol. This, not really a base note, it's more of a mid note, but I think it's going to go well in the with these materials. Now that I think about this, I feel like I should have added this with the linalool and the linalool acetate. Not that it smells anything close, but it's kind of a filler. And this is such an interesting material. It's like a little piney. It's like a little terpenic, and it's got this lilac, this floral lilac vibe that is crazy when you smell the pine aspect to it. It's just it's fantastic, absolutely fantastic. In any case, it's at a 10% dilution, but there's almost a full gram in here. So let's get it in. I think this is sold under the brand name Linalool. Okay. Oh, there's not almost a gram in here. I just overdid my terpineol alpha by a factor of 4. Whoops, I was looking at the ISOE Super line. Luckily, this is not really like a heavy material. It's not like overdosing Cologne by a factor of 4, which I have done before. So I think we're going to be okay. But I overdid it. So let's take note of that. All right, I have to put my Exaltalide on the burner. On the nuclear reactor, we've got to get this started, get the Exaltalide melted because we're using Exaltalide neat. Up next. Okay. Next, ISOE Super. Let's actually do the line I was looking at. There's almost a full gram of ISOE Super, and I'm doing this terribly wrong. I've got my ISOE Super neat. Let me double check and see how much ISOE Super. Okay. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to add ISOE Super neat, and then I'm going to adjust the amounts, just doing math in my head, and we'll do this. So I need 0.96, close enough. And then we will add ethanol up to the amount we need. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Nice, got it. Got it. I'm excited. I'm already excited for this. I'm getting wafts of what's going on, and yeah, I'm really enjoying this. So next up, we are going to do, let's do our Ambrox DL. Okay. This also, same amount of this as there is ISOE Super. Okay. Okay. I'm ashamed to say I haven't experimented a whole bunch with Ambrox DL. Most of the time, I'm just sticking to the tried and true Ambroxan or Ambrox Super or Orchinox. Occasionally Cetilox, but most of the time it's just Ambroxan. So, next, Sandalore. 1.2 grams of Sandalore at 10%. Here we go. Ooh, yeah. Sandalore is nice. Occasionally, I can't smell this. I don't know what it is, why it is, but occasionally it eludes me. Eludes? Evades me? What's the right word? By the way, I appreciate all of you helping with my English. Sometimes it just ain't very good. Come on. I should have known I needed a full pipette and then some. But I'm trying to be delicate. And, oh, perfect. Perfect. Last up, we are using real sandalwood here. And we're using it neat. Now, interestingly, user DBS makes a comment further down in the post that according to a source, there is no ISOE Super in this formula. There's not even Sandalore. There is just a larger amount of sandalwood. And I was tempted to make that adjustment, to not do ISOE Super, not do Sandalore, and just beef up the sandalwood. I was tempted. However, I wanted to do the formula that was originally posted, so I did not do that. Ooh, look at that drop. Ooh, it goes right to the bottom. Heavy. Heavy material. Probably just got one more. Yeah, then we'll clean out our pipette. Sandalwood is so nice. It's so delicate though. It's heavy. Like it takes some effort for me to pick it up. In my nose. But when I do, it's lovely. Now, if you've never smelled sandalwood before and you want to buy some just to smell the magic beauty that is sandalwood, I would recommend you don't do that. You're probably going to be disappointed. It smells lovely. Absolutely smells lovely. But if you're looking for something that's like going to knock your socks off, like get some Javanol or get something else, you know, I don't know. That's been my reaction. That's been my experience with sandalwood. It smells very good, but it comes with a certain appreciation of what I'm smelling. Or it requires a certain appreciation of what I'm smelling. The first time I smelled the real stuff, I'm like, that's it? I can barely smell this. Are you kidding me? I spent how much to smell almost nothing? I was a little upset. Oh, what am I doing? I don't want to smell this. Jeez, Ryan. Okay, friends, last hoorah. Let's see how the nuclear reactor's doing. Okay, we're getting some of this melted. I guess Exaltalide is going to be the last thing we add because it's got to melt. So we're going to add in all of our animalic notes now. We're going to start with indole. This is filling out that wonderful jasmine warmth. I wonder if the jasmine accord here is just the benzyl acetate, maybe the hydroxycitronellal, the arantiol, and the indole. I wonder. I don't actually know because I've never built a jasmine accord before. So, thank you for bearing with me. This time next year, it's always exciting to think, this time next year, this time next decade, if I continue on the track that I'm on, where will I be? Whether it be trying to eat well and exercise, whether it be working on your career, working on your skill set, your knowledge base, whatever it is. Can't remember where I heard this, but people, and it's so true. We're going to add muscanone. Neat. The wonderful, beautiful, musky animalic muscanone. But it's so true that people overestimate what they can achieve in 1 year, and they underestimate what they can achieve in 10. And ain't that the truth? Especially in our American society where we just get more and more used to instant gratification. You know, it's hard to be patient. Almost done, I promise. I'm not dragging this out, though I really do enjoy watching this drop into the juice here. It's almost making like little smoke rings when it falls in there. Okay, friends, we got one more. Let's give that a little mix. We have our Exaltalide. I hope it's, oh yeah, we're good. We're good, baby. I'm using Exaltalide Total. I maybe could use normal Exaltalide or even some Pentalide or Macrolide Supra. Or if I have some generic cyclopentadecanoline, I could probably use that. But instead, I'm using Exaltalide Total. It's kind of all the same stuff. Kinda. All right. We're using it neat. It's 3% of the concentrate. I need 0.24 grams. Okay, 10 drops. So interestingly, 1 drop of Exaltalide is 0.024 grams. Whereas if I were to dilute this in ethanol, it would be about 0.014 grams or 0.012 grams per drop. Okay, let's final blend here. Oh, I'm so excited. All right, let's dip and let's start our assessment. Round 1, the salicylates, benzyl salicylate, amyl salicylate, cis-3-hexanyl salicylate. Should be just salicylates here. And yes, it is. But interestingly, the cis-3-hexanyl salicylate, it's a nice salicylate accord. It's not just rich in balsamic with the benzyl salicylate. The amyl salicylate and the cis-3-hexanyl salicylate are giving this herbal green aspect to it. That's very lovely. Next up, citrus. I hope it's still on the strip. Sometimes when you add top notes and then you wait a half an hour. Yeah, dang it. A lot of it is evaporated, unfortunately. That's too bad. It's still citrusy. I'm getting the aldehydes from the citrus. I'm getting the citral, funny enough. But I'm not really getting the lemon, not getting the orange, the mandarin, the lime. That's too bad. It's been waiting there too long. Next up, we added the hedione, the benzyl acetate, and the hydroxycitronellal. And this is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. It's hedione dominant. And you know what? The further I get down on each of the strips, the more I'm going to be able to smell the citrus notes because. Okay, yeah. Dominated by hedione. It's allowing the citrus to push forward a little bit. It's very bright, very clean, very lovely. Next up, we added in a lot of those rosy materials, but also the isoborneol, the eucalyptus, and the linalool oxide. And here, yeah, it's okay. It adds a little rose, but it's just like the wind is blowing through a rose bush. I'm not getting slapped. This is not rose forward. It's adding a little backbone. It's adding a little muscle to this clean, bright, wonderful start. Oh, this is nice. This is nice already. Next up, we only added linalool and linalool acetate as filler, maybe a little booster. Let's see. Oh, definitely adds a metallic touch. It adds a bit more brightness, but brightness as in like shiny, reflecting off of a metal surface. And again, I'm starting to pick up more citrus here because again, when we dipped this was not as long ago as that initial citrus dip. Next up, we added the sweet notes and the fruity notes like the vanillin, coumarin, ethyl vanillin, the delta decalactone, gamma decalactone, or gamma undecalactone, and gamma nonalactone. Just lactones for days. And there wasn't much, but boy, does this add an elegance. Oh, and we still got 5 strips to go. I can't wait to smell where this goes, but I feel like I could stop here and just be happy. At least I could be happy not knowing how this dries down after an hour. Oh, but the addition of those lactones, it adds this creamy, milky, sweet coconut. Wow. Okay. I'm excited about the next one. We added the aldehydes. Cyclamen-aldehyde, which is not waxy like the aldehydes, but it's fresh. We added the anise-aldehyde, which is a rich aldehyde, and then aldehyde C10 decanal, classic aldehyde. Interesting. It just adds a powderiness. It does add a powderiness. And it's filling out the beachiness. I can tell why this is being called like a beachy fragrance. Yeah. It almost smells like you're getting a whiffs of that amazing suntan lotion that you get on the beach. This is wonderful, wonderful. Next up, the ozone. We had Cologne and Helional. Oh, interesting. It gives it a breath of fresh air. It's a breath of fresh air. Again, we're still getting more beachy. So far, so good. Next up, the powdery notes, the ylang ylang, heliotropin, and the veramos. Okay, this adds a depth. So far, starting at the red florals, moving to the linalool, the sweet fruity notes, the aldehydes, the ozone, we've just been getting higher and higher in the brightness and the projection and the scale of the fragrance. Adding those powdery notes of heliotrope, veramos, and the ylang ylang, we pause that upward trajectory and we bring it down a little bit. It tames it, adding a little bit more body and thickness, but it's starting to tame it. Now I'm expecting the last two to tame it even further because we added the Ambrox DL, the Sandalwood Isoe Super, the Lindenol or the Terpineol Alpha. But here are all the woods. And now I'm also starting to get the citruses that were lost. So. Yeah, it's beautiful. It doesn't change the fragrance on top. but you can tell there's a base, there's a foundation to what I'm smelling. And it takes it over the last couple strips. We've gone from breeze of suntan lotion hitting my face on the beach to what smells like a real fine fragrance. Absolutely lovely. Now, before I put this, smell the last one, I'm going to take a drop. I'm going to dip it on the skin. We're going to rub that in. Okay. And let's smell the last one. We added the animalic notes, the indole, muscanone, exaltalide. Game changer. Wow. First of all, citrus coming in strong. And I'll tell you, even though there is so much citrus in this, 22% of the concentrate, and if I include the dipropylene glycol as a part of the concentrate, the DPG is 17% of the concentrate. But if I include that, citrus is almost a quarter of the juice. And here it adds brightness. It adds, it adds just this bright citrus top. But I'm not getting smacked in the face with citrus. It's elegant. The game changer is the indole and the muscanone. The muscanone, if you know muscanone, you know there's a powderiness that goes along with that animalic quality. And it is working, it is high-fiving and playing really well with the vermouths, the heliotropin, the aldehydes. Absolutely wonderful. And the indole, it adds this beautiful, warm jasmine, true jasmine note. Just fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, let's smell it on skin. Elegant, delicate, citrus top, definitely powdery, definitely lactonic. At least that's the opening. I won't make you sit here for 30 minutes while we do the dry down. This smells very, 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 very good. Is it close to the original? I don't know. I haven't smelled the original yet, but it's in the mail. Thank you, DBS, whoever you are. 10 points for you. High fives and kudos. Thank you for sharing. I want to flag one thing. In this base notes forum, if you scroll down on the formula post, Felipe from Creative Formulas chimes in with his formula. He doesn't give you the line by line of his formula, but he says, here's my analysis, here are the changes I would make. And you can do your own math, I believe in you, and you can recreate the formula again, but using Felipe's input, and you can have a second version of the same formula from Felipe, and he does a great job. The stuff from Creative Formulas is, it's pretty darn good. At least I've had a great experience with it. So give that a try if you want a little brain exercise. Otherwise, enjoy this formula. It's fantastic. I'm going to bottle this up, let it mature, and we'll add it to the list of fragrances I need to do a comparison of. So per usual, thanks for joining me, and I'll see you soon.